Georgina Pazcoguin to join us. Hi, Georgina. How are you? Welcome to New Life Magazine Good Talk.
Hi, how are you? How's this going? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I can hear you great. And I was just saying right now that um, to our audience, this is New Lines Magazine Instagram live series of conversation, and I see all these beautiful waves. I have to say at the beginning of each convo, the only reason why I turn the waves off is because we post this on our YouTube channel afterwards so that it's not distracting. So just allow me two clicks, turning off request to go live, and okay, great. So Georgina Pazcoguin, she is the rogue ballerina. She calls herself like that, and she will tell us about it. But I want to introduce you to our audiences. Georgina has danced with the New York City Ballet since 2002, became the first Asian American female soloist in the New York City Ballet's history after being promoted in 2013, is the co-founder of the globally recognized diversity initiative Final Bow for Yellowface, which raises awareness and promotes inclusivity through sincere representation of all ethnicities in the performing arts. And she is a steadily rising star. As her bio says, it's a long list of performances on many platforms. And of course, Georgina is an author of the book Swan Dive, which I read, by the way. But yeah, and we'll talk about it all. She lives in New York City, but I think you join us from DC, right?
I am. I'm on the grounds of the Kennedy Center right now, so that's why I'm asking if you can hear me. There are planes flying overhead, and we just finished company class, so it's been a little
Yeah.
bit of a little bit of
No.
a. I'm not on my home turf, but
No, that's
hopefully this
great.
will
Thank
work.
you for joining. Yeah, I know that you have a very heavy schedule. So actually you're right 30 minutes away. I wish we could meet in person, but I know that your schedule is very, very packed, which is why I appreciate you being here. So, Georgina, in your official short bio at the Kennedy Center's website, it said, I quote, "A half hour with her will shake your stereotype of uptight ballerinas to bits." How is that? Like, why? Tell us
I
more.
well, that is it. It's. I think that must have been taken from my author bio. I am not what you call the quintessential Balanchine ballerina. I mean, obviously, like when you think of a ballerina, you think of this like dainty, um, like soft-spoken woman who's very frail. Like just my body type alone, like I'm a very powerful, muscular woman. I use my voice a lot for my activism, and I I just have completely, and also this idea, like, I think Black Swan and some other TV shows, although they do their best to like put ballet in the forefront, I don't necessarily think that they like paint women all that strong, like a lot, like um, so I just like am a real person in this ballet world, and also like I'm a woman of color, so that's kind of um, I'm just a down to earth person in this very uptight and almost elite feeling world of art.
Hmm. And how has the field or the industry of American ballet been permeated with racist tropes of Asian Americans or the outdated representation of Asians? Because we have international and global audience, of course. Can you share some of the manifestations or the typical results that shouldn't be there anymore or ever?
So why Phil, my partner in change, Phil Chan, and I co-founded Final Bow for Yellowface was, believe it or not, much like we no longer in the States do blackface on our stages. Um, Yellowface was still being done by our opera companies and our ballet companies, and it was something that even it's still in 2016, 2017, it was existing in my home company. So we started this. I was injured at the time, and I'm not one to lie idle ever. So Phil, we got a website for $10, and we figured the best way to talk about this was to inspire people to not point fingers and say like, oh, this is racist. That was like, for us, that was the first way to shut down the conversation. These are very difficult conversations, and we're not going to gloss over the fact that the only way to affect meaningful change is to incite meaningful thought. And so we started off with like a pledge that says, you know, I love ballet, and in order for it to survive well into future generations, we have to commit to eliminating Yellowface, and outdated, offensive Asian stereotypes on our stages. And it started off as that, and it was like grassroots efforts of Phil and I calling artistic directors that we knew. We wanted to start off with some of the major companies, and then we knew there would be a trickle down effect, which, like, to a pleasant surprise, there has been, and now it's gone all the way over to across the pond into Europe. The conversation has started there. It's even, you know, in a year ago, we were cited by Paris Opera Ballet in their diversity statement, and saying that they are pledging to no longer use Yellowface not only in their ballets but also in their operas as well. So that's pretty amazing to be able to have had a hand in that acknowledgement that, yes, we've been doing this. This is wrong. We weren't intending to do this in a malicious way, but we recognize it, how it is perceived by our diverse audiences, and how we must adapt and change in order for these wonderful art forms to survive into the future.
I mean, that's great. Congrats on that. Obviously, you're becoming a catalyst for some important conversations internationally as well. And as you said, you founded this organization, which now is chosen one of the Kennedy Center's next 50 for your work advancing Asian American and Pacific Islanders representation in this field. Has that that recognition come as a surprise? Do you think it will allow you some new channels to voice your concerns and what you advocate for?
I am completely honored. I mean, the list of people that they have chosen to be part of this Kennedy Center 50th anniversary, and to, you know, they're like, it feels like I'm like a very small tile in this greater mosaic of change, but to be a voice and to have used this voice, and knowing that it has not come without sacrifice, and has not come without its own sort of repercussions. Mm-hmm. It's what is possible for the future of the art form that I love is so worth it. And I have to remind myself, even on those days where I feel defeated, or we take like a step back, that like change is not achieved in a day. It's not like a light switch. This is change is going to affect generations that come so far after I hang up my toe shoes. And that makes me feel good. You know, like when I first got into the company as like a 17-year-old, I was already thinking about how to leave a legacy, and how do I leave the ballet world in a place that's better than when I found it. And this seems like it's a great way for me to use not only my voice, my dancing, this incredible platform that I have being a soloist with New York City Ballet, and knowing that, like, because I can pass, it has made this idea of being mixed race has made my path much easier than others, and opening the door and dragging as many people through that door as I can. That makes me feel like I've contributed something more than just, you know, how many fletes I can do on stage, or like what my title is when I leave. But yeah, I'm like, sorry to cut you off. But
No.
We haven't been, because of the pandemic, we actually haven't been able to meet anyone. I haven't been to Kennedy Center since 2019. And I think
me too, actually.
Yeah. And we've just announced that we will all together, all the honorees will get to meet each other in September. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay, so you'll be in town again then. Thank you for sharing some of your thoughts. I know that you wrote about them in your book, in the memoir, which was published last year, and the paperback is coming out soon, right? Maybe
yes.
It already came out. Congrats on that. And I was wondering, what kind of different feedback did you receive since publishing of this book? Especially, I'm curious about different audiences, because of course your colleagues the wider community. And I'm saying this precisely because you've touched a little bit upon it. And one of the reasons why I thought that you would be a great guest for a good talk is because one might think, oh, ballet is so niche, but the conversations that you are talking about, that you're leading, that you are not have started, but that you mention in this book are so important for so many people, women. I mean, whether, and the themes that you address, from racism, sexual abuse, mental health, body shaming, are really, really important. So I'm curious about the reactions to the book.
Well, and thank you. First of all, thank you for acknowledging all of these things that I tried so hard to frame and what my lens is, which is like, this is my job. I'm a ballet dancer, but like, I have suspicion that if I were a lawyer, there would be similar ties. And so as I wrote this, like, I'm a firm believer that in order for ballet to survive into the future, we have to make ourselves more relatable. Gone is this idea of like the ballerina has to be this like aloof, like unattainable thing that's like, our audiences aren't like, look, like we can connect via social media. Everything has changed in our world. So like this ballet, this idea of ballet has essentially stayed the same for the past 400 years. So I just wanted to present a voice, and not just, you know, a different voice. What's it like to be not only a ballerina, but a woman, a person of color, you know, just a, you know, starting from the book, like a young adult trying to make it in New York City. And I think ultimately one of my biggest lessons in this coming to age that I go through Swan Dive, and it's not always been easy, and I've experienced a lot of like heartbreak and downright wrong things that should have never occurred. I want to empower not only women, but anyone reading the book. This book is not just for women either. Like, if you feel that you have the ability, you have the freedom to grab hold of your truth and tell it. It is yours. No one can take that away from you. And so that's one of the universal messages that I wanted to put forth in the book. I'm sorry about the plane.
I have them too. They're everywhere in DC. Well, it's okay.
They're everywhere. But like, so like, and how important it is to like, it's absolutely okay to be a hot mess, but then be super together in one lane of your life. That it's not, it's not linear. This life journey. And I wanted to also just have people fall in love with ballet the way I fell in love with ballet. And I think that's a unique sort of space. Not everyone can tell you what it's like to perform on stage. And so one of the reactions was like, I felt like I was in the shows with you. Like some of the descriptions that you gave, and just like how you're a klutz in normal life, this like juxtaposition. And I, you know, my dog's sitting right here with me. It's just like, I'll finish a show and then I'll go outside and like, I'm picking up her poop. I'm not like, I'm not this like, I'm not royalty in any sense of the word. I'm just a New Yorker trying to also make it in this town. So like, it's just, I think it's very important for people to see that and to see the wonderful personality. I'm not the only personality in New York City Ballet. My colleagues are some of the most fascinating people in the world. And you don't necessarily get to see that because it's one person, the way a ballet company is structured. One sole opinion decides who's on stage at any given moment. Wow. And so I just tried to like flip the script in a while and be like, here's the ballet from my view. And I'm not saying it's the definitive experience. It probably is most likely not. But and do it through a place of humor that we could talk about. Like, humor is my deflection point. Like, but if it's a way that I can talk about heavy subjects and open the door and make someone else feel comfortable about sharing their experiences, I think the people outside of my immediate circle have truly responded well. I just hearing your thoughts, hearing the Broadway world's thoughts. And then hopefully, you know, hopefully we'll have an even bigger stage for this story soon enough. So,
Is
I
there a
mean,
hint of something?
I can't speak of anything
Yeah,
yet, but
I
I'm
felt
just,
it. I felt
uh,
it. Okay, I'm guessing, but I'm not going to guess publicly that. Okay, got it. Happy to hear that or sense it. But thank you. I mean, you do say it in the book as well. You say that it's a love letter to the art of dance, and but you also bravely did not shy away from talking about scandals as well. And you tell your readers straight from the beginning of the book that you won't hold back in the discussions of your experiences. And I can only imagine how that was not an easy decision. And you have shared a little bit about your what drove you. But I was curious, when did you decide you wanted to write this book, or that
um,
you when you got to do it?
so I owe a debt of gratitude to my dear Phil Rosenthal. I was injured and was in the
Mm.
midst of this whole scandal that might come. Like I think the universe truly had my back, where I was like not in the epicenter of the action. So I was like out in LA nursing myself. Like I moved from New York because I knew it was going to hurt me. So, and I had to redefine who I was, not being a dancer, not knowing if I was going to be able to come back from this major ACL surgery. And so I would meet my friend for coffee, and then he finally was like, you tell stories. You're sitting here and you're like telling me stories, and it's 8 a.m. and I'm like thoroughly engaged. Like, have you ever thought of piecing this together and writing a book? And I was like, I mean, yeah, but like, and so he helped connect me to my book agent, who then helped connect me to a few collaborators. And 1 second, I'll wait for the truck to go by. And then it took a lot longer. I mean, it took from 2017 to, early 2021 to really tie together everything that happens within a day. I mean, there's so much that occurs between 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. In a dancer's life. And there's so much to cover from the age of like 4 to now.
Mhm. Oh.
It was in finding a way to like do palette cleansers between the darker subjects. That's what I came up with. The idea for like Swan Dives would be these stories about me falling, not only like physically, but also like, like morally, to be these palette cleansers between the darker subjects. And it just, there was a version of this book that didn't dive as deep into these things. And I read it and I sat back and I was like, wow, Gina, like what a cop out. And then I had to dial back and really dig deep. I mean, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to put your truth out there in a way, and then also walk back into the halls of, walk back into your workplace where it all took place, and take everyone's reaction, like I don't regret anything that I wrote in the book. It is my truth, but I also have to understand that there were gonna be people who were gonna react poorly to it. So as much as there was great support and acceptance and support from some of my colleagues, but it has not been universal. And so that has been a very, very interesting process for me to try to navigate that with, I'm making a bad pun, with grace, and to come in and still do the work and stand firmly in my truth and live it every day. Not only am I doing that in terms of my diversity work, but I'm also doing that in terms of my own truth shared in Swan Dive. And it's readers like you, it's readers like the people listening that are making the book such a success. So I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, and I know because I have a writer at my house. I understand what a book writing process is, but I also want to remind our readers, writing an essay, because we're a magazine, production of an essay is such a teamwork, a process that is so long and requires so much effort. So I'm both familiar with the idea of scratching everything, like starting from scratch and zero and not liking it, and working with a team of editors about the process. And the process is afterwards when you see a product, you're so both like, wow, what a relief, but you know how much pain has been put into that. So just a
But
reminder
also
for
being
readers.
like an A type woman, being like, no, it has to be this picture with this caption, and then you like going back. And thank God I had like mostly a wonderful, like a fantastic team of women who were behind me this
Yeah.
entire time.
Yeah.
It was so refreshing, and I'm so thankful for the team of people that helped put Swan Dive on the shelves, both here in the States and in the UK. I'm also like headed to the UK in a week to do some book press over there, and I haven't even been able to touch down since it published. So I'm really looking forward to connecting with readers over there. And it's also just like the promotion afterwards. Like you think it's going to be this like huge, like the publisher is there, and then the book comes out, and then they're on to the next. And so it's really like I've really had to learn to be my own publicist, my own marketing agent, it's been like a crash course of almost running a tiny business.
For sure. And you also do so much on the side beyond this project. And in 2017, you joined the City Ballet state mandated diversity committee. So I was wondering, how has that experience helped you channel your advocacy, or have you seen any positive changes since 2017 when you joined?
Well, that was also like that gave me the courage to that was kind of like the genesis of Final Bow, where I was sitting in these meetings and I was sitting down with my then boss, like and the problematic boss for me. And it was the first time we were able to, like, I felt like he saw something, and he like something tapped in, and then he asked a question, well, like, what if I cast this dancer? Would it be seen like as token casting? And I was like, it's less about that. Like, you're gonna have like everyone in our company is capable of doing principal star work. I mean, you're like arguably the best of the best at City Ballet, but you're gonna have a bigger problem with the offensiveness of the Chinese divertissement. So it really just gave me and Phil the starting point, this jumping off point to start this conversation with the ballet, the Nutcracker, because it can be such a teaching tool, right? Like if you think like the people who are not, don't live in cities where they have a large company where they can go see the ballet like during its season. Most people have seen a Nutcracker production, whether it's like, their niece or their nephew were in it. And so we felt that was the most accessible way to start talking about how Asian heritage is portrayed on stage. And then you can expand it because it kind of takes you on this tour of the globe in the second act, and kind of recognize how it was written from this Eurocentric lens, and how we can very easily shift it to be from this global lens. And then essentially, because sorry, my dog just like went for a squirrel, but like this global lens that could then teach our children more about culture and get them excited to experience culture when they're of age.
Yeah, and you do write in your book, actually, you describe one occasion where you state that had you expressed your feelings, you would have been pushed aside, and you say, quote, my role would have been given to another dancer who would be happy to step into it. Shut up and dance was the sentiment. So obviously from what you're voicing, at least there are some changes and that have been going since I don't know, recently, I guess in the last couple of years, thanks to people like you, or the global events, I guess, or the events
I
in
think
this country.
it's both. It's like it's this conversation that was happening. I mean, like Phil and I did not start this. Like there were already conversations happening in major companies across the country. We just became this hub and this place to be an affirmative, like we all love ballet. This is how we are united. It's like we want it to survive, and this is the way in which it needs to move forward for it to, for our patrons to want to donate to the ballet. You're
That
not going to
too.
get you're not going to get Asian donors if they're seeing an offensive stereotype of themselves on stage. They're not going to turn around and buy a subscription. So it's like, it's not only is it the right thing to do, but it's also it's the only business move to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, it started off with this pledge, then these world events keep happening, and it only creates more, it makes it more important that we shift and recognize each other as humans,
Mm-hmm.
and find where we can unite with each other. And I do think that dance is a universal language, and as is music, and it should be an art form that lifts us all up and unites us, not demonstrates some of our stereotypes of each other.
Hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and these conversations, as you also mentioned, are ongoing. I mean, there was recently, actually in January this year, another big article in the New York Times by Margaret Ford entitled "Do Men Still Rule Ballet?" And it was it talked about a significant gender gap, and the article, the author wrote that women still are minority, both as artistic directors, as programmers. There's a
This is
lot of
very true.
statistics. Yeah, so I mean, it talks about leadership there. I was wondering about your perspective, because you said one person can kind of determine the path of your career. That's
Right. I mean, it's like, so the ballet company is structured kind of like a monarchy. The artistic director decides all of the casting. And like, yes, there might be ballet rehearsal directors, but like for the long time, like it's still like, we as women still live in this patriarchal world, and we are making strides. I mean, just like, look at what's happening now with Roe versus Wade. There are a few select people who are deciding what we can do with our bodies. So this is it exists in the ballet world, because the ballet world's what, like, for like at least 300 years behind what we're doing in our social world, in the world outside of the rehearsal studio.
mm-hmm.
So it's important for me to be a strong female voice. And I do think it's changing. We have more female directors, we have more female rehearsal directors. I would love to see more conductors. I would love to see more, choreographers
Mm-hmm.
allowed more chances. Um, but like I said, this is all part of the discussion.
Yeah.
And then you layer in the diversity aspect of it. It's like, they're wonderful, so many talented women of color who deserve a shot and a chance, not only to be ballerinas, or or in terms of men, get to be premier dancers, but they can also lead companies.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what would it be like to have someone like that, like someone with that lens, lead a company for once? And to circle back to your question, like, when I was performing the Chinese divertissement myself, I knew and felt it was wrong. But you're right, the the dynamic there was, you were not allowed to speak up about these things. Like, I was not in the place. I was in the core. I had um, zero power, zero autonomy. And I wanted to advance within the ranks. So like, that was technically a principal role. So it's like, you speak up and get punished, and so I had to I had accounted for myself that even I myself have done Yellowface. And the way I processed that was to make a caricature out of a character. Like, I could never go on stage and do the dance seriously. I had to like make fun of it, in a sense, because it just felt so wrong to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just like naming that and processing that, and being open to talking about that, helps other people find their own pathway, and understanding how, some of my colleagues who don't share my heritage, like, how they have never had to think about this before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a gateway for more conversation.
Yeah, and it made me think, while I was preparing for this interview, I was reminded how these conversations that happen here are so important and obviously pertinent for this context, but there are so many regions in the world, and we're a global affairs magazine, so I always think in terms of global affairs, and when I thought about this topic, how we have many places where dance profession is not even taken seriously, where people cannot even take dance classes, ballet classes. There's also lack of resources. So it was sad to think about it, and because you spoke about art and music as the universal language, how a lot of people don't have the opportunity to both participate, to both learn. And so I was just wondering whether you mentioned Paris Opera at the beginning of the conversation, whether when you talk with artists or colleagues abroad, you can sense that in context where it is adequate, these conversations occur outside of the United States as well. This
Oh,
change,
I
is it?
mean, we consulted with I'm losing my headphones with the Scottish Ballet. They've
Mm-hmm,
made changes. Royal Birmingham Ballet has made changes to their Nutcracker. It has been so
mm-hmm,
heartwarming and touching to see this conversation grow and grow in a way that like Phil and I don't, we've never had to reach out to someone, you know, like
mm-hmm,
of course I've reached out to City Ballet, but that's my home. But it's like we allow for we to inspire people to want to reach out to us, and like how can we be of service in helping affect change. Like
mm-hmm,
I love that you want to have a discussion, like, and that's kind of what Phil and I have done over these past 5 years, is to open ourselves for conversations, for to present, to help be problem solvers,
mm-hmm,
and for people who want to change, because you have to want to change first as an institution. You can't force this stuff, and people will know if it's performative or not. And I think this 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 wave started off slow and it's gaining momentum, but I think it's gaining momentum in the right way. I wouldn't want it to be like a like a quick
mm-hmm,
switch, because you can't really honor your
mm-hmm.
diverse dancers without letting them bloom, letting them become artists. You can't, like, you can make switches to choreography rather quickly, but in terms of like grooming and educating our future leaders of ballet companies, that takes time, and that needs to start now.
I know that you have another rehearsal coming up soon, and so I want to thank you for joining me for this good talk, because I really think it was a good talk, which is why I call it a good talk, right? And so I just want to ask you last question, and you talked about the support of your colleagues and then women, whether it was in the book production process, etc. I just want to ask you really about this importance of community to you. You've spoken about or written about unbreakable bonds with your colleagues who have helped you, and how you support them. I thought that was beautiful when somebody has last performance, how that is important in the life of a dancer, how you were there for one of your friends, and it was so gratifying, you say, for you. So I thought that was beautiful, and I learned something new. But what does this community mean, how important it is um, in the life of an artist, or more generally too?
I think that there's first this idea of community within the ballet company, because we do something that is so physically demanding, and you start
Mm-hmm.
off in the corps de ballet and you're on every night and you're exhausted. So, you know, it's like I have shared this now, like nearing 20-year career with some of these dancers, and it feels like you've been in the trenches with them, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
blood, like literal blood, sweat, and tears. And now we have COVID, you're like filling in last minute for dancers who have prepared for roles, and just and kind of and I really feel like it hasn't always been this way. I haven't always thought about support this way, and the ballet world doesn't always set women up specifically to support each other. I mean, there's a super competitive nature just to be a ballerina, right? And so this is this idea that I have now of like, there is room for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it, the wins feel so much better when they're able to be shared.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my approach to like why, and like no role is mine to have. It's like, it's always, this is such a fleeting career, and I'm so thankful and so honored that like my gift on this earth is to dance. And I have to be willing to be able to pass on this knowledge. And I have this desire to leave the ballet world whenever I stop dancing better than when I found it. And that's why community is important. That's why I'm working so hard to push for, meaningful changes, to make our companies more diverse, to make our programming more diverse. And that's why we're expanding Final Buff Yellowface into this, this arts organization called Gold Standard Arts, which is going to connect all AAPI creatives, not only not only dancers, but lighting designers, costume designers, conductors, composers, so that we can kind of make this. I'm missing the word. There's this, so that there's a pool of Asian creative talent, and that can be, mined and given a chance to flourish, so that the pressure doesn't fall on like one or two names that happen to get through. And I think ultimately you need community to make that sort of change. It's not done by one person.
Yeah, well, that was so powerful, and it's applicable to so many conversations in different industries and different communities. Well, I hope that this kind of helps raise awareness to the goals that you kind of put forward, because it is important. It touches so many people in a society. So thank you for joining us at Good Talk, and good luck with your performances. I will keep following. I was going to ask you what the future holds, but I know that as you put on your website, you're open to it. You hinted something. So I hope that our audience as well can get to, or whoever wants to follow your work has resources on your website.
Yes, I do update. I'm not the best with the social media, but I do update large events. I'm currently, I just finished a project in LA that's called Houses of Zodiac, which is a wonderful collaboration with composer Paola Prostini. And it's actually a film. The live performances, unfortunately, are done, but this was a blend between ballet and buto. And it's a film that was made during the pandemic. And Dai Matsuoka, my wonderful partner, we were never able to be in the same room together. And we choreographed this pas de deux that was performed in green screen and then edited together.
Wow.
And it's
teamwork.
Fascinating. It's fascinating how that it came together with such chemistry. And so we did a live version of it, which was wild to finally meet the person you've collaborated for 3 years with.
For sure.
But a portion of the film is going to be on display every second Saturday at the Broad Museum.
Wow.
So that's where you can see me there if you're in the LA area. I'll be back in New York performing very soon. I think my next performance is beyond, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night here at the Kennedy Center. For Midsummer, I will be performing at Fire Island Dance Festival. So I'm around, and I hope people read the book or listen to it even in the car. I hear people enjoy the audio version as well, which is narrated by me. So if you want to hear my voice for 9 hours, that's the way to go.
Well, I'm sure people space it out during their commutes or whatever they're doing. I like to listen to it when I'm washing dishes sometimes. That's like a good thing. So anyway, thank you so much, Georgina. Good luck. And to all of us, all of you in the audience, stay tuned for more Good Talks by New Lines Magazine. Have a good day.
It's such a pleasure. Take care.
Bye. Ciao.